Karoline Leavitt cannot handle her job. She does not have the intelligence or the temperament to be able to deal with a job where your sole purpose is to have reporters ask you questions and you answer them. She knew that's what the job was when she signed up for it. Nevertheless, she has been unable to handle it the entire time she has been serving in this position. And she proved it again this week during a absolutely unhinged interaction with CNN's Kaitlan Collins. CNN's Kaitlan Collins, like millions of Americans, wants answers, about the death of U.S. service members in Iran. Right? That's not a crazy question. That's not a gotcha question. That's not a biased media question. This administration launched a war on Saturday, and U.S. service members have died. And that is actually something that is always talked about when wars are happening. Karoline Leavitt, granted, she's like 12 years old or whatever, so she doesn't understand that, right? She's new to this, new to life, I guess. So Kaitlan Collins, asks Karoline Leavitt, quote, "Is it the position of this administration that the press should not prominently cover the deaths of U.S. service members?" And Karoline Leavitt viciously responded, quote, "No, it's the position of this administration that the press in this room and the press across the country should report on the success of Operation Epic Fury and the damage it is doing to the rogue Iranian regime that has threatened the lives of every single American in this room. If the Iranian regime had their choice, they would kill every single person in this room. And so we can all be very grateful that we have an administration, that we have men and women in our armed forces who are willing to sacrifice their own lives for the rest of us in this room and for every American across the country and for every troop that is based in the Middle East." Okay, no. For the record, no. Iran did not threaten the lives of every single American. That's not a thing that happened. And Kaitlan Collins understands that. So Kaitlan Collins said, but Secretary Hegseth was complaining that it was front page news about these 6 service members who were killed. So, Kaitlan Collins is like, yeah, I get what you're saying here, but your own administration is mad that we're covering the deaths. So, that's what I'm talking about here. I don't know what your diatribe was about, but that was the point. And Karoline Leavitt responded, "That's not what the secretary said, and that's not what he meant, and you know it. You are being disingenuous. We have never had a Secretary of Defense who cares more." And Collins interjected and was like, actually, here's the exact quote from Hegseth. So Karoline Leavitt was lying, and that's when she got pissed off when it was proven that she was lying. Leavitt continued, "The press only wants to make the president look bad. As you know, the press, the deaths of U.S. service members under every president, the press does only want to make the president look bad. That's a fact. Especially, listen to me, especially you and especially CNN and the Secretary of Defense cares deeply about our war fighters and our men and women in uniform. He travels all across this country to meet with them, to connect with them. And your network has hardly ever probably reported on that. Because it's not news." Literally his job, Karoline. Literally his job. We don't go out there and report on things just because, hey, look at this, somebody's doing their job. Oh boy, who'da thunk, right? No, that's not how the press works. And she continued, "And I just told you that the President of the United States will be attending their dignified transfer. So please, we expect you to cover that as you should, Kaitlan. But you and your network know that you take every single thing this administration says and tries to use it to make the president look bad. That's an objective fact." Collins calmly said, I don't think covering troop deaths is trying to make the president look bad. And Leavitt, in one last angry, unhinged, psychotic outburst, said, if you're trying to argue right now that CNN's overwhelming coverage is not negative of President Donald Trump, I think the American people would tend to agree, and your ratings would tend to disagree with that as well. That actually made no sense. Like, whatever this statement is that you just said, I think the American people would tend to agree, and your ratings would tend to disagree with that as well. CNN's ratings disagree that they're being negative to Donald Trump. Karoline, think before you speak. But you can't, because you are ruled by emotion. You are an emotionally immature young woman who was not ready to be in the position that you are in. But you kissed Donald Trump's ass. I'm hoping just figuratively, but it wouldn't surprise me to find out if you literally did that. Also not going to be surprised if this child you're carrying turns out to be orange when it's born. I mean, let's face it, the way you look at him, you are in love with him, I think. But you're also deeply unhinged and need serious psychological help. Your response is not something a normal person would give when asked that question. There's something wrong with you. And you, for the sake of your own children, for the sake of your own, well-being, you need to get that fixed by a professional.